All right, hello friends, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Our Life, Beginnings and Always, Baxter's Route. Let me tell you guys, I was just staring at the screen here for a while, going, there's something wrong with this situation. I can't tell what it is. And then it finally popped into my head, it was that I hadn't turned my light on, and everything was a little bit darker, but we're here, we're ready. I just ran through late shift real fast to see what was different, if anything, and it didn't really seem like much. I'm kind of questioning boating. I guess I'll run through that myself in between episodes and see, and then if there is something, we'll see boating, but you know, I don't want to go boating right now. Let's get some drinks, you know? Let's get into this. It was late enough in the day that you were surprised to hear a knock on the door. Yeah, it's like night, dude. Seeing who was waiting on the other side only doubled the surprise. Good evening, Kit. I've returned from my journey. Congrats. Baxter's smile warmed like it was still the middle of the afternoon. Your confusion must have been written all over your face. He laughed as if he could read your thoughts. It was almost a week ago that you'd found Baxter in that same exact spot. He spun a tale about how he put in place some plans to visit old acquaintances in Northern California after his parents had told him they were sending him to Sunset Bird. Baxter assumed being in the same state meant that he was reasonably close for a visit, but he learned the hard way how daunting it would be to drive himself to the opposite end of California. California is rather large. Before he left, Baxter ended that conversation with a promise. On his return, he would tell you of the arrival in person, and there he was, true to his word. Thank you.
Nice to see you.
I feel like I've been away for an age. That arrangement has seemed like a stroke of brilliance, adding more adventure to my stay in the state, and assuring myself I'd see friendly faces at least once in the season. Yet, truthfully, I wouldn't have promised such a lengthy trip away from town if I had known who my neighbor was going to be. Nice. As pleasant as they were, it simply doesn't compare to what I have here. Thank you. I'm so flattered. Your smile perked amusedly, but a part of you did sincerely mean it. While it always felt nice to be missed, Baxter's candidness was something special.
Excellent.
You ought to be. Otherwise, I'd need to go back to the drawing board for my next attempt at a compliment. Okay, hey, we're coming inside, I guess. Before anything else, you let Baxter actually come in. He cordially joined you in the family living room. With the greetings and pleasantries all done and an invitation to talk extended, he got right to the point, as you would have expected from him.
I hope I'm not being too forward.
No, go ahead, continue. Say the whole line, why don't you? I would like to spend more time with you. In fact, I was wondering if I might take you on a date. I spoke so boldly about that desire before, and it's long overdue. Damn, okay, not what I was expecting. I guess I should have when this moment was titled Drinks, but if that's what you also want, of course. I guess nod. I don't like any of these, so nod. Your heart leapt for joy, and that excitement was reflected in your smile. I'm thrilled to see that. And obviously this tentative date would be based on your own schedule. It'd be ghastly if I expected you to drop everything simply because I've only now made myself available. Whatever works best for you, I will accommodate accordingly. It is late today, so I don't expect that, but I am entirely free tomorrow. We must have anchored the forces of fate because our schedules keep clashing. You gave a deep huff of discontent. Baxter's smile faltered. Tomorrow I'm spending the afternoon visiting family. I don't think I'll be home until pretty late. But we could do something in the morning, as long as you don't mind it being kind of short. You placed the suggestion hopefully. It seemed like it'd be a good compromise, but it was hard to tell what Baxter thought. He stood there, silently. The look on his face changed. It was strange. There was a problem, certainly. But if he was free and so were you, what could be that much of a roadblock? We can hang out some other day if that's not what you had in mind. His expression shifted again, and not for the better. Dude, just say something. Whatever caught him off guard in the first place was nothing in comparison. Baxter was getting even more perturbed. What's up, my dude? And just as quickly, Baxter snapped out of it. He released a steady breath and regained much of his usual relaxed composure with his next inhale.
I apologize.
Forgive me for being distracted. Your idea is perfectly manageable. More than that, in fact, okay? I'd prefer it if we didn't put things off to another day. How about we go to a cafe and get coffee, or tea, or whichever drink you prefer? I've seen some very nice ones when I've been out exploring the area, but I haven't patronized any of them yet. Yeah, that'd be great. Excellent. Tomorrow morning it is, then. It was always going to be a busy day, but at least now tomorrow had an added dash of excitement. The anticipation was mutual, and Baxter's tone sweetened. You got all the details squared away. Baxter volunteered to play driver for the short trip. I mean, only one of us can, so... And you planned to drop by his house in the morning, once you'd gotten ready. When all that was settled, there was nothing left to do other than say your goodbyes for the night. Baxter politely dipped his head. Bye. Have a good night.
Goodbye for today.
That's a new one, okay? He turned to go, and you both found little ways to stretch the seconds, lingering for as long as you could. And then he was gone. The rest of the night passed pleasantly. Your thoughts wandered along all the fun paths tomorrow could unfold in. The next morning, you were up and out the door like a whirlwind. Your eyes were set on your goal as you went up the hill and across the street to Baxter's condo. I mean, didn't we already say that it was just like diagonal to us? So that's not very far up the hill. Knocking on the door, you tried to guess the cafe Baxter had in mind. He'd mentioned before that there were a few that caught his eye, but you weren't sure what that meant exactly. Your growing curiosity wouldn't have to wait much longer. Or maybe it would. As you stood in front of Baxter's shut condo, you gradually realized it was taking quite a while for him to answer the door. Much more than was normal. Oh, I understand now. I understand. I get it. Blinking, your head swiveled as you double-checked for your own sanity that you had the right house. I like that he was perturbed by this, knowing that it was going to happen, I assume. You did, but Baxter was still nowhere to be seen. You rang the doorbell next. Another couple minutes passed, and finally you began to hear the faint clattering inside the house. The door pulled open a crack. It was barely enough to see Baxter on the other side, wearing a half-littered daze, and not his usual outfit. That was for sure. Hey there, Baxter. Are you okay? He yawned loudly and then sluggishly followed your line of sight to look down at himself. He frowned the second it clicked that he wasn't dressed for the event. You guessed those were his pajamas.
Forgive me.
I will need an additional moment before we can leave. I'm running late, it seems. And he shut the door. You were left there on his doorstep, entirely at a loss. He's not good with mornings. His bizarre behavior was unexplainable, at least for the second it took for your brain to completely process what had happened. It dawned on you that this was the first time you'd actually seen Baxter before noon, and how that might not be a random coincidence. He wasn't a morning person. So, you're still in pajamas, dude. Suddenly, the door flung all the way open, nearly knocking you backwards. Baxter was back, and this time, you got a full view. Baxter was indeed wearing only his pajamas. Black and white PJs, of course. Excuse me, that was rather impolite. I mean, whatever. You couldn't tell by his tone of voice which incident he was even referring to. Shutting the door in your face, or was it the way the situation was dragging on forever? It was hard to know. But Baxter moved aside enough that you could pass by. Why don't you come in? You went inside past the entryway and into the living room. At that point, you were more concerned about Baxter safely navigating his own home than you were about even making it to the cafe. He closed the door and followed behind. Baxter pinched the bridge of his nose between his thumb and forefinger as his feet dragged. Please, do take a seat. I'm so sorry for not being prepared. I set an alarm for an hour ago, and I know I heard it go off. Somehow, in a matter of moments, that hour disappeared, and now you're here, and I have little doubt about your punctuality. He moved the hand up to rub his forehead with his palm as if to catch the memories lost inside. You didn't rush him, instead settling yourself in a chair. I don't know how this could have happened. Baxter's words became too mumbled and faint to understand. That brought your gaze back to him directly. And you... Oh, okay. Sure. And you got an eyeful of his exposed stomach. Baxter was in the process of taking his shirt off over his head, just right here, cool. But in his groggy state, the material had gotten caught on his ears. You're so messy. Okay. This was the absolute last thing you were prepared for this morning, but you couldn't hold it against Baxter. He was so tired, and it was funny. Averting your eyes, you tried to find something else to focus on, but it was hard when you also couldn't stop the giggles from coming out. Baxter tugged the collar of his shirt down. What's so amusing over there? You. Looking at him again only produced more laughter from you. It was a natural response. He followed your line of sight to his wrinkled clothes.
Oh.
It's me. That's not correct. I'm sorry. I'm used to living with dorm mates. They don't care about that sort of behavior. I've lost my manners. I'll go change properly in my room. It's no harm done. I really don't mind. No. He waved his hand, dismissing your notion completely. He sighed deeply, still seeming absent-minded. You're my guest, and I'm being terribly rude. Please, stay here. I'll be back in 2 shakes, okay? And with that, the situation was out of your hands. You watched him fumble his way through the room. Baxter made it upstairs, and then the slam of a door sent the house rattling. Damn, okay, dude. The following dead silence only lasted a split second. Sorry. His voice rang out from what you assumed was his bedroom. His next words were even clearer. He must have opened the door again to speak. I didn't mean to do that at all. You're so messy. This is not what I expected. Okay. That's okay. I think I pulled the door too hard. No problem. That happens. I swear the noise was completely unintentional. Just go change, my dude. He didn't add anything else after that. He remained where he left you in a rapidly growing state of disbelief. To put it nicely, Baxter was a total mess. And somehow the universe deemed you worthy of having a front row seat. Oh boy, I like a lot of these. It was kind of fun to know he wasn't always so poised. But also it's kind of cute. Despite it not being Baxter's ideal part of the day, he was still trying so hard to make it work. That consideration and intent meant a lot. And the bedhead, pajamas, and groggy silliness was an added bonus that you were going to treasure. After a few minutes, the clumsy bumping around upstairs faded. A part of you considered the chances of whether or not he had fallen asleep somewhere, but the sound of careful footsteps soon banished that thought. It would be funny if he just fell asleep. I'd accept it. Baxter returned downstairs and properly dressed as well. He drifted his fingers along the buttons of his shirt, double-checking that everything was in order.
Hello.
Here I am. Good morning. Are we sure? You were pleasantly surprised to see him already. Hopefully he was actually doing as well as he was trying to. Morning, sleepyhead. I can't emphasize this enough. Thank you so much for your patience. I apologize for that unnecessary bump in our plans. Baxter graciously moved beyond his earlier antics. If you hadn't witnessed it firsthand, you probably wouldn't have even believed it happened. Though as you observed him more, you noticed the signs. He hadn't erased all evidence of a few minutes ago yet, if you knew how to look for it. His usually pristine and deliberately put together outfit was pulled and tucked in the wrong places. There were even wrinkles. Baxter turned his head in an attempt to suppress a yawn, and there was a dull edge in his entire demeanor. He hadn't quite reached his usual razor-sharp wit yet. It was alright. You still quite enjoyed this soft, easygoing state of Baxter. Okay, You smiled reassuringly. Baxter's sleepy grin widened in return. You were glad that the morning seemed to be getting on track as planned. He simply took longer to get in gear than usual. I mean, on one hand, it's okay if we don't continue our plans, but on the other, like, I feel like you're gonna say go for it anyway, so. You already agreed to this. But then his smile slipped, and you could see Baxter's guilt surfacing. It's okay. I should admit directly that mornings are, as you might have surmised, a challenge. It wasn't always this way, okay?
I swear.
The older I get, the more the early hours become a chore. I got up at dawn for school for years, but college allowed me to actively avoid morning classes altogether. Yeah. I mean, they say that you should have morning classes your freshman year so you can still keep up with being productive during the day, so that's on you. You should have scheduled one. Now I can't remember the last time I had an occasion to be out before 11 at the earliest. Baxter rubbed the back of his neck. His frustration with himself was palpable. Seriously, you don't need to feel bad. Some people are built that way. Nevertheless, it's jarring to be entirely lost for a specific chunk of the day. Okay? I expected I would have a rough start, but I never thought I'd handle the occasion this poorly. I certainly would have made better choices if I knew this was the sight I'd be showing you. The intensity in his voice gradually lessened until the final part was delivered quietly. He couldn't even look at you as he muttered,
But
If you're still interested, I would be thrilled to go have our charming cafe breakfast. It would be a shame to miss out on the chance. That's a good point. That's a good point. I'm not gonna say it. Of course I'm interested. A wave of relief smoothed out the worry from his brow. It was sweet and pulled a quiet chuckle from you. Baxter's feet scuffed over the ground as he followed you out of the condo. He simply shut the front door before walking into the street. I mean, it's such a small neighborhood. Nobody comes here. I feel like that's okay. Don't do that at home, maybe, but you shrugged it off, I guess? And while he might have been living in a daze when Baxter was standing at the driver's side of his car, you could see his focus sharpen. Good. This was a task that neither of you wished him to fail. He unlocked the vehicle and slid inside. You climbed into the other side. Baxter seemed to be in better control of himself by the second. His seatbelt clicked into place with perfect poise. When you were both ready, Baxter promptly brought up the directions to the cafe. Here we are. Sighing contently, you leaned in your seat and soaked in the morning sun coming in through the window. You were optimistic that the date was going to be great. The drive wasn't long at all, and no issues came along. It was smooth sailing. You hopped out, and the scents wafting from the cafe were enough to pull you towards the propped open front door. Ooh, okay. Yes, it is a cafe. There's so many signs, I'm trying to read them, but I don't think I can read a single one. Once you were inside, the intermingled smells became easier to decipher. Chocolate, cinnamon, bacon and eggs. What a mixture. And, most especially, coffee. There was something about that particular brew of coffee that immediately reminded you of your parents, okay? The two of them loved to have long, easy mornings in the kitchen with mugs of coffee between them on the counter. They might be doing that at home at the very minute. Before you could tug on that thread of thought further, a waiter passed by you carrying a sliced, I don't know how to pronounce that, quiche? Never had one, I guess. You breathed deeply, picking out the various ingredients before your eyes could confirm it. It looked impressively made. Baxter led you towards the showcases. There were even added baskets of bread and other treats there. Every inch of space was fully stocked with options. Clearly coming early had its advantages. Whether you ate anything or not, the sight was delightful. There was a charm to how they presented the fresh pastries. That was the word he'd used when pitching the place. Charming. Baxter was right on the money there. It was a pleasant little cafe with a comfortably quiet atmosphere. Though it was a bit more formal than a typical coffee joint. You couldn't sit anywhere or order at the front. A member of the wait staff needed to seat and serve you. Okay, weird. Also, I've just now noticed, like, the seats back to back here, but it does not look like there's enough room. Kind of weird, but okay. You found that detail to be a Baxter thing. It was absolutely him to choose a sit-down restaurant even for a casual breakfast. A server came over and gestured you to follow her through the room. She brought you to a shiny two-seater table and passed out the menus. Welcome. I'll bring some water, but if there's anything else you'd like to drink, I could put in the order now. Or you can take some time to think about it. You'd be a lifesaver if you brought me a black coffee. Please. No, I'd like... What do we have? Okay. Hot coffee, iced coffee, Americano, latte, cappuccino, Oof. Okay. A latte, because I'm basic. Gotcha, I'll get that right now. Just relax and browse the menu, and you're welcome to take a peek at the front and see what baked goods we have prepared today. She clicked her pen and closed, and then left you two alone. Baxter sunk in his seat, slinging one arm over the back. His eyelids fell heavily closed, but his smile remained serenely in place. You going back to sleep, my dude?
Now.
Please order to your heart's content, whatever you fancy. But don't be alarmed that I don't have much of an appetite in comparison. Coffee is all that I need this morning. Okay, loser. Of course you'd only want a black coffee. I didn't even read the rest of the options, I just really like that one. No, I'll say it. Baxter perked up at your joke. He leaned forward slightly and the corner of his mouth pulled up.
Charming.
You are an absolute delight. Thank you. You weren't entirely sure if you were going to order anything yet. It was a deliberation you had with yourself while Baxter took a break. Luckily for you, the cafe's layout was open enough that you could observe the glass cases at the front from the comfort of your seat. You passed the time comparing what was printed on the menu to the real-life displays. Soon enough, the waitress was on her way back to your table. She passed out the 2 waters, then placed a white cup filled with richly colored coffee in front of Baxter, and a latte by you.
Perfect.
Are either of you two ready to order? I'm taken care of, thank you. I guess I want a pastry. Is it considered a pastry? Hold on. I have to see what the other options are. There was no way you could resist. The treats by the front of the cafe looked too good to pass up. I mean, yes. The waitress smiled intently and readied her pen. I'm all ears. Oh boy. Where is it? Croissant. I didn't even read the rest of the options. coffee cake, they have muffins, banana bread, cheese Danish, fruit Danish, cinnamon roll. That's nice too. Scones, it depends on what kind of scones they have. Speaking of scones, I went somewhere recently. I'm not going to name where, but I went somewhere recently that sold scones and I got one. And I was kind of disappointed. I was like trying to think to myself, I was like, where is it that I've had the best scone? Because I can remember eating a scone that was really good, but like, where did I get that scone? And then I realized that it was the one that I made from scratch at home, so that's kind of lame. Not to, be overly self-important or anything, but that's upsetting that I can make scones better than any other place. A cookie, a piece of cake, a piece of pie, a cup of bread pudding, or a bear claw. I feel like cookies, cakes, pies, those aren't breakfast food. Anyway, a croissant. Great choice. That sounds really yummy. I'll get these menus out of your way and then I'll be back soon with your order. She scooped up the menus and walked away, dropping them off at the front stand before disappearing into the kitchen. Baxter shifted his attention to you.
Lovely.
I'm pleased you're getting something to enjoy. I would not walk out of this place without a croissant. My dude, anywhere that sells them, I'm getting one. Another long, wide yawn forcibly derailed Baxter's train of thought. He politely tried to shield you from the image by covering his mouth. Once he'd wrangled himself back into control, Baxter flashed you a grin, though it quickly lost its playful oomph as his eyes remained extra-lidded. Uh-huh. He had something in mind, but he also seemed fairly content to simply gaze at you languidly. Baxter lifted his coffee and pressed the edge of the cup to his lip. He took a slow sip before putting it down. Baxter propped an arm against the table so he could hold his chin up. Normally that would have been a casual gesture, but anyone watching could tell that he desperately needed the extra help keeping his head upright. You drove us here.
Is that fine?
Before the food arrives and steals all your attention away, would it be fine to ask a question? Go for it. What exactly is the event you have on the horizon? I don't know. Something crazy. I'm going to see my aunt and uncle. And my favorite cousin? I'm looking forward to seeing them, but I'm already missing Lee. Who's Lee? My cousin, their daughter. We're about the same age and are friends, but she won't be there this time. I'm so sad. She's busy. This is so depressing. I don't want to play anymore. His response was cut off by another yawn, and one that morphed into a wince. Baxter tried to smooth things with a sweet smile.
I'm sorry.
I promise that was not me being bored. No, I get it. He blinked, and it was hilariously obvious that his eyelids didn't easily unstick. You bit down on the inside of your cheek and tried not to laugh. It's alright. You're tired. Exactly. Please continue. Yeah. Out of my aunt and uncle, it's my uncle who I'm directly related to. He's my mom's younger brother. We all get along. That's the part of my extended family we're closest with. Well, in terms of location. Laughing, you scratched at the back of your head while you explained. Baxter nodded along, focusing on the sound of your voice. His smile softened as you grew more animated speaking about your family. It's not like I don't have a good relationship with everyone on my ma's side, but they mainly live in Hawaii, so it's a lot harder to go see them in person. My grandparents used to be in California when me and Liz were little, so they could help out, but that was temporary. And yeah, it's nice having a family that we can see more often. Your voice trailed off with fond thoughts about your family, and then your eyes snapped wide open. All Baxter did was ask about your plans for the day, and somehow you'd ended up rambling about so much more. Sorry for getting off the topic. Nonsense. I enjoyed listening to everything you shared.
Thank you.
For telling me about your family. It was lovely to hear about them. That's a relief. Most people around already know about all that, so it's been a while since I've gotten to talk about it. I'm glad I could offer you the opportunity. The waitress returned with your order. Yippee! She placed it carefully on the table. Enjoy. Thank you. You didn't waste a single second and gave it a taste. It was good. Since you had basically covered everything about what you were doing later, you didn't need to juggle thinking, talking, and eating, just as Baxter intended. It was nice to preoccupy yourself with this treat. Baxter, meanwhile, only had his coffee, and he was acutely aware of that difference. Baxter pinched the inside of his lip between his teeth while he tried to search through his foggy thoughts for something to say. He wanted to be good company, but he wasn't sure how to accomplish that. I know. How about I tell you what happened while I was on my trip? Go for it. Spill all the details.
In that case...
Baxter sat up straighter in his chair and considered how he wanted to begin the story. His focused mindset momentarily overcame the tiredness that clung to him. As you know, I traveled to Northern California, and it was a monumental drive. Several hours of me, myself, and the road. That car was wonderful. It got me there and here again without a single issue, when it had every reason to rebel against all the potholes I accidentally hit. Baxter paused on that note and took a drink of his coffee. He placed the cup down on the table and winced. It's somewhat silly now that I'm vocalizing it, but I feel a tinge of guilt for all the miles I've managed to put on that vehicle over the course of this vacation. Sighing deeply, Baxter wore a wistful look. You understood the magnitude of his trip. Hopefully his mysterious acquaintance was the laid-back type. On a brighter note, the drive was even more scenic than I imagined. It was a shame I couldn't snap a single picture. Still, I'm grateful that I was able to leisurely travel across the state while I was here. Yeah, I bet. It must have been an incredible marathon of sights. And all that fuss to see some old family friends. Believe it or not, they're actually people my parents have known since well before I was even alive. Wow. Wow, indeed. I can't even imagine knowing someone for that many years. Though between you and me, I don't have much of a relationship with them myself. Really? But you went completely out of your way to see them. I know, they've always been fond of me, almost as if I was their own nephew. They're more than happy to open their door to me, given the chance. This might surprise you, or perhaps not, but I managed to get along famously with an older set. No, that doesn't surprise me.
So?
It was only polite to make a social call while in the relative area, and there was plenty to catch up on and discuss while I was there. We even happened to catch some fantastic shows. Nice that you enjoyed your trip within your trip. Baxter's nose scrunched as he chuckled. He took another quick sip of his drink. I can't agree more. The two of you continued to chat about upcoming plans while finishing your drinks, and also in between several more extended and defiant yawns from Baxter. Eventually, he glanced towards the windows and his brow pinched. He didn't say anything on his own, so you asked. What's wrong?
Well...
I'm worried that I might be keeping you too long from your other plans. It's not too late yet. I don't want there to be a yet. Your family's important. Do you want to get going then? Yes, that would be for the best. He turned in his seat until he caught where the waitress had gone. Baxter waved and she returned a minute later. Could we please have the check? I hate this option for choosing. I hate this option for choosing. It'll be one ticket. So you say. You've got it. I'll get that for you right away. As soon as the waitress was out of sight, Baxter let out another yawn, but it morphed into a frustrated groan. I'm getting fairly sick of that. His tone didn't sugarcoat a single feeling. Pouting, Baxter crossed his arms and tightly shut his eyes. Unfortunately, coffee can only do so much. Baxter only murmured and roughly rubbed the sides of his face. His frustration manifested visibly as a grimace. I can distinctly feel my own eyeballs in my skull due to the strain. His hand dropped onto the table and the glasses rattled softly. That only made his mood worsen. I hate that. I shouldn't have to be so aware of my own presence in this body. That's exactly what I just did. It seemed like a nap was his only hope. The waitress approached once more with a small black folder and placed it on the center of the tabletop. Can I clear any of this away for you? No rush if you're not ready. Please, take it all. We're about to leave. The waitress got right to work gathering the cups. Baxter, meanwhile, picked up the folder and opened it. After a few moments, the server was off again and Baxter peeked at you over the top of the folder. Thank you, Kit. I do appreciate you making time for me at the very last minute, and especially on a day when you are already so busy. No, thank you for inviting me.
Of course.
It's always a treat to see you, Gross. Baxter's half-lidded gaze lingered contently while he reached in his pocket. And then those tired eyes... You're so lame. 10 out of 10, good move. And then those tired eyes snapped open. He reached the alertness he'd been striving for in an instant. Oh god, my wallet. He stared at you helplessly. Baxter was sober and extremely aware of the reality he found himself in. I didn't bring my wallet. When I got dressed, I did not recall to take my wallet off the nightstand. Oh jeez. That's fine. You had more than enough to cover his black coffee. Obviously, this wasn't what Baxter had in mind, but what was one more hiccup today? Baxter didn't react at all to your suggestion. Dude. Pat, you're gonna be okay. Understandably, Baxter was mortified. He threaded his fingers through his hair. I'll quickly run back and get it and return, but then I'd have to abandon you here, and that's not any better. Perhaps they might make an electronic payment I could send through my phone? Take it easy. You got a black coffee, not a 4-course meal. I can cover for you. The corner of his mouth twitched, and you read that as a sign that he'd at least heard you. Sorry, I just looked at his face, though you suppose it was only because he had reached a dead end in his own abilities to solve his problem. Baxter pressed his palms against his eyes and his fingers curled tightly. He released a slow, shaky breath. You weren't sure how to help or what to do. You could only watch. He exhaled deeply once more, and this time he lowered his hands, folding them neatly on the table. Baxter, if you're gonna react like this, I'm going to pay for every single thing we do from this point on. I would appreciate that greatly. He couldn't quite look at you while he spoke, though the forced politeness in his tone reached you completely. Good. This is nothing. I got you. You collected the check he dropped in his panic and slid your card into it. When the waitress swung by, you handed it over. There was no trouble to be found at this table. Thanks a bunch. Just 1 minute. She walked off and you shifted your attention to Baxter. In that brief period, his shoulders had lost their defeated slump, and he sat stiffly upright instead. He studied your reaction with a delicate smile. Please don't misunderstand. I am entirely fine. The issue is with my behavior towards you. You don't need to force yourself to make me feel better. It was all my mistake. His lips pressed into a fine line, and it was crystal clear that he was preemptively stopping you from further okaying the situation. Your gaze dropped to the tabletop, and the awkwardness was too stifling to do anything else. The way Baxter was beating himself up for a perfectly normal misstep was horrible. You didn't like it at all. There was a reason why people called these kinds of situations accidents, because there was no manipulative or malicious intent. His only crime today was being human and sleepy. It would have been great to remind him of all that, but Baxter was far too irked to hear any of it. He wanted to move on, so you bookmarked things there. The date wrapped up in a haze. The waitress returned your card and wished you both a wonderful day. Then you left. Baxter managed to muster up a few things to discuss on the car ride home, but the conversation was distant and disjointed from how you both normally clicked. He made it home safely, though not before a silence had time to form. The slamming of his door to exit the vehicle was the first you'd heard from Baxter in a while. The two of you had stood on the street, face to face, but the awkwardness from the cafe had also come along for the ride, and it lingered forebodingly. This wasn't something he wanted to continue between you and him. Neither of you made a move to leave, a promising sign that he was struggling with the same thought. Baxter began sliding his fingers through his hair, but then he paused mid-motion and dug his nails into his scalp. His controlled expression strained.
I'm sorry.
This is all my fault. I not only forgot my wallet, but I made things increasingly worse by acting immature about it, undoubtedly making you uncomfortable. It may be hard to believe at this point, but I often can deal with unexpected issues as a reasonable adult. Today stung a little bit more than usual. I'm big enough to admit that. It certainly did not help that all this was coming on the heels of the already disastrous first impression. I've been hopeful that I could still fix the overall impression by the end. Needless to say, I didn't succeed, and I completely understand if you were doubting the merit of a relationship with me at this point. I presented myself terribly to you. What a mortifying first date to go through.
But
if you're willing to, I would like to ask for a second chance. I can take you out for drinks tomorrow night, or rather any night you have free. Preferably the night and not during the day. Preferably afternoon. I promise the next one will be better. A dusting of a blush rose in his cheeks while he barreled through everything he needed to say before he could get a single word in. Finally, Baxter paused to breathe. He blinked, trying to absorb the magnitude of everything he'd said. Now that he laid all his cards on the table, there was nothing left to do but anxiously wait. Above all else, he wedged open a space for you two to talk, and that was a relief. There's a lot of good ones here. Okay. Like all of them. All of them. Right in a row. There was nothing terrible about what you did. You don't need to feel bad about it. You don't have to try so hard. I had a great time. I guess you don't have to try so hard. That's kind of the main. I feel like this also encompasses these, you know? Believe it or not, but I enjoy hanging out with you, even if you're not ideally graceful at every step. I know that wasn't your plan for anything bad or embarrassing to happen, but that's why they're accidents. That wouldn't make me stop talking to you. You're far too kind. But I will need some clarification if that's a yes or no for the second round. I think I can pencil you in. How does tomorrow night sound? His gaze was gentle, if only for a single look. Baxter swiftly resumed his usual grin and confidence.
Very well.
I'll be in touch later with a specific time then, and potentially a suggestion for what you might want to wear. Oh, okay. Okay. Have a lovely rest of your day with your family. Tell your mothers and sister I said hello. I will. Excellent. See you again soon. He waved goodbye and earnestly seemed to be in a much better mood than only a few minutes ago. You waved too, even though his turned back couldn't see. Bye. He steadily walked home, and once he was safely inside, you couldn't hold your frown in any longer. All morning, Baxter acted as if he had to be the one who needed to earn approval. To him, you weren't individuals getting to know each other. He was an outsider who had to jump through hoops or be excluded. That was the impression you'd gotten. It was more than upsetting. Maybe he took it that hard because he was so tired. That felt like wishful thinking, but you thought so anyway. It was possible Baxter would be more comfortable after he rested. And if he wasn't, then you hoped that he would allow you to show him that your company didn't have to be like that. The rest of the day was focused on your family, and it overall was a great one. It was nice spending the afternoon with your aunt and uncle, moms, and Wiz, and you remembered to tell them Baxter said hi. You were half asleep when you finally made it home and collapsed onto your bed. Soon, morning had come again. We're getting both of them in the same... Okay, I wasn't sure if we were getting the second one as well, but perhaps it looks like so. The afternoon that followed moved strangely fast and slow because you knew there was another date at the end of it. Exactly as promised, you received a text with the set hour to meet him at his condo. Baxter informed you that it was going to be late when you'd be leaving, so he recommended that you have dinner as usual. Apparently this place did not serve meals, only drinks and appetizers. Interesting. Along with that, Baxter made the eyebrow-raising suggestion that you should wear formal attire. No, I mean, I felt that in my bones. He said it. He said, I'll let you know what you should wear, and I was like, okay, this is something formal. He included an assurance that he'd be prepared when you were ready to leave. During dinner, you mentioned that you were going out for drinks with Baxter later. Your moms were still commenting on your plans when you left to get ready. Even a few teasing remarks over the dress code floated upstairs with you. When you opened your drawer, your mind was made up. You'd wear something. You would wear something. Oh god, not grandly formal. What does that even mean? Like you're gonna put on a cape and a little, like, crown or something? What? Formal. It was odd putting on some of your nicer things when you had no clue what you were even dressing for, but there was something exciting about having that mystery too. Looking at yourself in the mirror, you admired the sophisticated person staring back. It wasn't often that you did this. Slowly but surely, you were figuring out this growing up thing. There were a few minutes left before you had to leave, so you made sure that you had everything you might need while you were out. You ran through the essentials: phone, house keys, money, ID. As bad as you felt for Baxter, you didn't want to run into a similar problem of forgetting something important. It was a good reminder for both of you to be careful. Once you knew it was all there, you went downstairs and waved to your moms on your way out the house. Their goodbyes and well wishes reached you as you locked up. You walked down the street and arrived at Baxter's house. Quite literally seconds after ringing the doorbell, you heard the rattle of the doorknob turning. The door casually opened, not too fast, not too slow. And there on the threshold was Baxter, though this time he wasn't in his pajamas, but instead a full suit. That was naturally also black and white. Hello. Thank you for coming. You took a deep breath. So much for looking the part. Damn. Honestly, you intended to dress properly, but Baxter was still in another stratosphere in comparison. That suit was probably tailor-made.
You're incredible.
Not quite what's written, but I'll take it. I can't tell you enough how delighted I am that you're accompanying me tonight. You're sure? Absolutely. You'll be one of the best dressed attendees there. Thanks. I was hoping I wouldn't disappoint.
Never.
You? Disappoint me? I don't imagine that's possible. Oh, this is good too. I was laughing at, so you brought a full suit for your summer vacation, but I like this too. Kinda hoped you'd be in pajamas again. I should not say that. He'll be really upset. The suit looks nice. Baxter smoothed the front of his jacket. He had enough experience to know just how charming he looked in formal attire, and he wore it proudly. But that sight suddenly paled in comparison. He brightened like your compliment was a true badge of honor.
Glad to hear it.
I'm always thrilled when an opportunity arises to wear it. Now that you'd gotten a good eyeful, you could discern that Baxter was truly himself. The exhaustion and the embarrassment from yesterday's morning adventure were entirely removed from his features. I don't know that I want to bring it up. I mean, while yes, I agree, I don't know that I want to bring it up. Baxter offered a matching one in return. You wondered if tonight's outing resembled more of what he originally intended the other night on your doorstep before it all truly started.
Now.
Shall we go? This isn't something we'd want to be late for. Lead the way. And so you both climbed into his car and were off. Baxter drove you out of the neighborhood. Your attention lingered on the starry sky for a moment, able to see a good view of the moon until he took a lazy turn. When he turned back to Baxter, his expression said little. He still offered no obvious hints about your destination. The only thing you could count on was that the place would serve some form of liquid. Probably. So, why recommend the formal wear? Well, he diligently stared at the road, not yet out of the residential streets of Sunset Bird. You caught a glimpse of his excitement as he continued talking. If you recall, I mentioned how we saw some shows while on my trip within a trip. You could call that my inspiration. Once you graciously accepted my invitation, I began the endeavor to search for a particular performance we could see together. Okay.
To be honest,
I had high hopes for what I could manage, even with such short notice, and happily I doubt you shall be disappointed. He let his words settle, drumming up in anticipation. Coincidentally, the car rolled to a stop at a light. He turned to you with a proud grin. Tonight, we'll be seeing a live show featuring a comedy of errors style romance. Okay. His foot pressed on the gas, and he turned on the main road. A show? It wasn't anything you were expecting, but then again, it was Baxter. You were getting the impression he liked to surprise you. Wait, what about drinks? Unless there's a cafe in the middle of a theater, that's a very misleading invitation. Not a cafe, but... Baxter's smile grew. He had expected your reaction. They do serve drinks, an excellent selection from what I found, and it will be only drinks. There's no food on the menu. He shrugged his shoulders, not particularly finding that to be a loss. You were glad you weren't hungry. However, as promised, the drinks are crucial to the experience. You see, this isn't at some grand arena. Okay? You'll find tonight's entertainment is at the spectacularly immersive setting of a jazz bar. All patrons will witness the story unfold in that very room. His voice lowered, theatrically so, fitting for the topic of conversation.
Does that sound alright?
Also, if you'd like, it's possible for the actors to interact with you directly. Okay. I don't know which one of these to say. I like the vibes, but none of these seem like something I'd say. Oh, cool, with that period. Sounds like you're just saying it. Like, oh, cool, I guess. Seriously could be taken either way. Could be like, oh my gosh, seriously? Or it could be, seriously? You know? That's amazing is a little bit too much. But I guess that's amazing. I guess it's closest. You'd never heard of anything like that in the area. You wondered how Baxter had found it. It sounded like so much fun. He let out a single gleeful chuckle and brightened considerably.
Excellent.
I thought you'd appreciate it. It was so fortunate that they were having a performance tonight. No kidding. It was perfect. You couldn't wait to get there. But perhaps we should wait to actually see this. I don't know how much longer this moment in particular is going to be, but we're at an hour, and I don't want to do that thing again where I record for 2 hours and it's too long. Hopefully the rest of this isn't like 5 minutes, but I think that this is a good place to end this here. Thank you for watching this episode. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you are excited to see what is going to happen next, because I know I certainly am. I kind of want to play more, but also we should respect the time. It's been an hour. I'll see you in the next episode.